Hi all, today we're building a small portable workbench that can be easily transported, assembled, and be used while sitting or standing. I built this workbench because I visit my girlfriend often and needed a workbench so that I could work at her place when I had free time. Also, I wanted to have a small table in the basement where I could get away from the cold in the garage. This table was inspired by Izzy Swan's Discovery Build table, and his video is linked below. As usual, I began cutting all my wood to the correct length before doing anything else. For this small workbench, I am using construction 2x4s. After cutting them to length, I then ran them through my table saw to remove a 1/4 inch from both sides. This is to remove the round edges that came with the lumber. The overall width drops from 3.5 inches to just 3 inches. Next, I glue up the laminated tabletop, 4 pieces at a time. This is also because it's the widest that my clamps can handle. You can see that I have drilled some holes in the longer pieces here. These holes are part of the hinge system that will accept a 3/4 inch dowel and allow the table to fold. For the thickness of the tabletop, I decided that 2 inches would be sufficient for me. When when the clamps are applied, I then used a straight edge to align it together and then um, wiped off the excess glue. For gluing the larger middle section, I decided to build some quick homemade long clamps to clamp the top together, and this uses wedges that would apply the pressure. And the clamp here worked quite well. When using the wedges, I actually had to use C clamps to help me apply the necessary pressure, and it was able to squeeze out the glue, which is a good thing. As the glue dries on the tabletop, I started working on the legs. Each leg contains a diagonal piece like this, and it had like a sharp angle, and I had to make a quick and dirty jig to cut these angles. The diagonal, once I got it working, were pretty accurate. But before they were pretty good, I had to refine it several times using scraps. I decided that the legs would be attached together via mortises and floating tenons. I figured that they would be much stronger, and also I wanted to try my mortise jig that I built in my previous video. This was actually the first time I really used it for any project. My video for me building this jig is in the description with plans included. The mortises were 3/4 of an inch wide, which made it for a good fit with a 1x2 lumber as a floating tenon. You can see how the legs are joined together here. The floating tenon is used to secure the 2 vertical and horizontal pieces and one side of the diagonal piece together. I applied glue into the mortises of 2 pieces and then spread it around using a popsicle stick, and then I inserted the tenon and put the parts together. The longer diagonal side here that I'm applying glue on, I decided to just leave it as it is because it has enough surface area for the glue joint, making it strong. And also it was thin enough to where I could just screw it for extra strength. While we let the legs dry, I moved back to the tabletop where I planed it flat. There were a lot of edges that weren't 100% even, so I had to knock it down smooth and also at the same time level off the top. The hinges were also rounded too during this process so that they could close properly when assembled. I did this using my hand planer, but soon realized that I could get the job done much quicker and smoother with my hand sander. Assembling the folding top is quite straightforward. The hinges fit together nicely. There were some spots where it was too tight and I had to loosen it by running it through my bandsaw and taking off little material at a time. I insert the dowels from both ends because the holes are very tight and is mostly due to the fact that I drilled the holes free-handed so they weren't 100% aligned. And this is because I don't have a drill press. I left a little bit of the ends of the dowel sticking out just in case if I had to take it apart. Once finalized, I would hammer these dowels completely in and flush it to the sides. After assembly, I do one last planing where the hinges are. This is to make sure that the separate tabletop pieces are flat with respect to each other. And then I sanded the tabletop using my rotary sander. I used 180 grit for sanding. I could have gone more finer, but I decided this was going to be getting abused, so I didn't need it to be that smooth. The final assembly is done by clamping the legs first, where I made sure that everything would fit together nicely as it folds up. And then once that was finalized, I screwed the legs together. I decided using screws for mounting because I wanted the tabletop to be removable in case if I ever needed the tabletop by itself or if I wanted to change the table legs to something else. And lastly, I varnished the tabletop using 2 coats of shellac and 3 coats for the top part where it will get the most abuse. And I wanted it to be sealed as much as possible from the environment so that it will retain its flatness and not distort over time from the weather. And with that, the table is done. Easily collapsible with 2 bolts. I may modify this in the future of how it bolts together, but that's what it is right now. It works pretty well. I hope you enjoy this build. Plans are downloadable and included in the description below. Thanks.